We'll be starting our last event of the first QUESCREN Biennial Forum. I'm Lorraine O'Donnell. Welcome to the 31st activity of the 3-day forum, which is QUESCREN's first biennial forum. Before I introduce the moderator for our last third town hall, I wanted to start with thanks. Thank you to Marc and Stephen, our technical wizards. Thank you to Marc and Stephen, our technical wizards. This was the least glitch-ridden conference I have ever seen in my life. Bravo. And needless to say, it was technically very difficult going from plenary to 4 rooms to plenary to lunchroom, and you did it with grace and good humor. Thank you. I want to thank, I am drawing a blank, Cindy, yes. Who is in charge of the technical work to film our activities. We're not sure what we're going to do with hours and hours of footage, but I guarantee you it will be good. Thank you, Cynthia. Thirdly, I wanted to thank my friends and colleagues who are QUESCREN staff, Dr. Patrick Donovan, the note-taker, the good-humored bellower telling everyone to get into the room, and a very fine researcher who just got his doctorate in English Quebec studies. Aurelia Roman, please stand up. Aurelia is soon to be getting her doctorate. Also on a topic crucial to English Quebec studies, and she presented today. If you didn't see her presentation, you can find it on the app.
It's also her birthday today.
That I didn't know. To Anna Gomez, who juggles Polanyi Institute, which is an intellectual institute at the School of Community and Public Affairs, with QUESCREN office coordination and our front of house expert for this entire event. Thank you, Anna Gomez. Who's right here, stand up, Anna, who introduced, got, wrangled, Huba, and may I say is not the one responsible for the rogue HAL, 2001 Space Odyssey emails you were getting, badgering you to sign up for the app. That was not her fault. Thank you, Anna, for your technical wizardry. We had weekly team meetings that managed to be fun despite fear and chaos at every moment. So I now have the great pleasure to introduce Marie-Josée Berger. Marie-Josée Berger is a full professor at the School of Education at Bishop's University. She is a member of QUESCREN's interlevel educational table and has really taken a strong, supportive, and leadership role in that capacity, and we're extremely grateful. And she is also on the program committee for this forum. She's very much more, but that's all she said in her bio, and the app rules. So Marie-Josée kindly took on the difficult job of chairing the last town hall, where we wrap up and try to make sense of 3 very rich and diverse days. So thank you, Marie-Josée.
Thank you, Lorraine. Good afternoon, everybody. I can't hear you. What's going on? Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I guess after 21 activities, you are dead tired. But a few minutes again before you just collapse. As a member of the program committee, I would like to thank Dr. O'Donnell for her leadership, her commitment, and also Dr. Donovan for his work and his support. These 3 days have been amazing. Quite a journey. Bravo, Lorraine. Sincere félicitations. And also, I used to be a kindergarten teacher. So know, it's obvious. So first of all, we have to felicitate, congratulate ourselves, because being here for 3 days, it has been amazing. So let's do that. And so now it's time to reflect on what we learned over the 3 days. What recommendation do we have for decision makers? And where do we go from here? So there are about 6 questions, 6 sub-questions that the forum proposed, so we can reflect and give our opinion and share, you know, our opinions, whatever it is, about those questions. And I would like you to keep in mind that quote from Nelson Mandela. Education is the most powerful weapon which can use to change the world. During those 3 days, we have been trying to change the world for our Anglophone community. I remember in December 16, 2016, I was at the Secretariat de la Jeunesse, and because I have put, as Associate VP, I put for bishops a proposal, because when I came back to Quebec after living so many years in Ontario, and I found that there was nothing for the youth, Anglophone youth. It was amazing. So I decided by myself that I should do something. And then thanks God, my principal, Michael Google, agrees with me. And I remember when I went with Michael to meet the premiere, and I said, you know, my name is Marie-Josée Berger. I represent the English minority. He said, you look at me, Marie-Josée Berger, English minority. I said, yes, sir. Because when you're a minority, whatever color, whatever race, whatever, you are a minority. So I embrace this community. So here I am. Now, the way we're going to proceed, I will start with one question and go to the micro, and I think there are people writing and reporting, and then we'll move to another question and so on. And I'm not, you know, there's still academic freedom, as you know, but if you can be very precise, you know, in whatever answer you want to give, and, you know, we will really appreciate it. So let's go. So we'll go with the first question about awareness, about the education system's role in building community identity. What did you learn, and how can we increase that awareness? The floor is open. Come on, guys, come on. What did you learn about how can we build community identity through education? We heard so many things about education. You know, the school boards, we heard, you know, so many information about what's going on, teaching of history, what's going on in the schools. So how can we use that to build community? Yes.
I'll start. I was very interested in the town hall led by Paul Zanazanian yesterday to see that there's fruitful and robust discussion around whether to have separate courses around English-speaking community culture and history, or integrate them and push for integration within the so-called mainstream arguments. So one way I have had my awareness increased is simply to know that there's a diversity of approaches on key issues, and that needs to be taken into account with respect as people move forward.
Thank you.
Just in the last session, and somebody said it, so I'm going to repeat it, it's not new. Education does not just happen in the school. And it brought it back to me that that's very true, and we should support it wholeheartedly. Thank you.
So I'm from Cecile, and I teach CEGEP there, so I teach literature, English literature and humanities courses. And I'm originally from Ontario, and I've been living in Sept-Îles, which is a Francophone community, for 25 years. So for me to think about being part of an Anglophone community, it's really different for me than people from Montreal, where there is an Anglophone community. We have an elementary school that teaches, that's English, we have a secondary school that's English, and we have 2 programs within French CEGEP that are available in English. But I don't think I'd thought a lot farther than that about the role of community and its connection to language and its connection to education. And for me, this was a lovely experience of broadening my awareness of the importance of the arts, of continuing education, of early childhood education, and the realization that if I'm working with my students in English and then they go out into Sept-Îles and they never speak English again, what's the point? So the importance of community becomes something that we need to fight for and we need to work on and we need to build together, and that's how my awareness has increased during these 3 days. Thank you for this opportunity.
And before I do that, I will add on, because you said you live in Ontario, but as a Franco-Ontarian, the Franco-Ontarian communities are in the schools, because the 12 school boards depend on the Franco-Ontarian community. So they are in the schools, they are at the university, and that's something, when I came back to Quebec, I was wondering, like for example, at Bishop's, I was looking for the community. When I was dean at Ottawa, the community, Francophone community was there, and sometimes even telling the administration what to do. So that's the big difference, I think, between the 2 communities.
Hi, I'm Linda. I'm with the UCGN. I was at my dad's house last night, and he told me a story that I feel really relevant today. So I grew up in the Laurentians and then in Montreal. And when I came to the Laurentians, my father brought me here as a young child. I grew up as an Anglophone Quebecer. And so we lived in Morin Heights, and he worked in Saint-Agathe and Saint-Jérôme and another. Anyway. And he said, I remember when they closed the English school in Shawbridge. And he said, when they did, this was the single thing that scared the English community the most, because the school was the center of the community. And I've been thinking about that today, and I think that's really, really relevant, because the schools are the center of our communities. And if we're looking at the education system's role in building community identity, and we're acknowledging the power of community hubs, and the role that they play, no matter where you are. If you're out in the regions or in Montreal, the school is where everybody goes. Everybody accesses the school, and it's a real opportunity to create opportunities to create community and to build identity, whatever format that identity takes. And I think that that's an important thing, and I've heard wonderful examples of that happening today. This wonderful example of this program happening at Heritage CEGEP working with CLCs and other examples too. So we're doing it, and maybe we sort of celebrate it more and push it further, because working in community development across many places and in different areas, I always find that getting into schools is not always easy. So we have to sort of find ways to break down that barrier and really make use of that.
Thank you. I go ahead.
There's something I've learned or educated myself through this forum, and it's about how school can also deny some people from the community identity in the English community in Quebec, communities I should say. And in this case, I was part of many, 2 talks about the Black community in the English communities and how they are doubled, minoritized, and how they are invisible. So I think we should also try to remember that there's some flaws within the school system, both in French and English, and how some part of the English community members are invisible. So I think we need to keep asking ourselves, who is part of this community, who is not? And it's an ongoing conversation that we need to have. and has a majority group. We still need to be aware of it and try to do better.
And I did write an article about
So my name is Sarah, and I'm an independent consultant. Maybe I'll face this way. That's
Go
really
for it,
Sarah.
Sarah.
So I'm an independent consultant. So I've had the real honor and privilege of working with a couple of different workshops here, helping plan and present them. So I've kind of seen from the back end, but then also as a participant over these last couple of days. I think when it comes to this question, those of us who are here at this forum, I think already have an awareness of that the education system plays a big role in building community vitality. That's why we're here, because we see and believe that and want to keep talking about it. One maybe new angle that I've understood is the importance of that self-reflexivity at all levels of our educational institutions. Like, I think in some places there are people within the educational institutions that see and understand themselves as playing a role in community vitality, but not everybody in every educational institution sees and understands that. And kind of to your point, particularly when it comes to the community of communities, so to speak, like when we're talking about community vitality and all the complexity and the diversity, and how our structures, our educational structures, are either supporting those, including or excluding. So that's one piece. And the other piece, which was, I think, heavily emphasized in all of the, I didn't go to 31 events before this, but in the ones that I was part of, is the importance of education, but not simply working in a silo. Like the importance of education, particularly in partnership and in collaboration with other sectors, with other organizations, that really radically increases its effectiveness in terms of contributing to community vitality. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now let's move to the second question. So, did you look for new opportunities? Did you see those new opportunities for networking and collaboration? Have you identified them during those 2 days? What opportunities have you identified?
Maybe we could just do a show of hands of how many people made connections.
And maybe, but can you give me an example of opportunities that you find today, for those 2 days? Day 1, day 2, day 3? What new opportunities? I know you said an example, you talked about, the fact that, you talk about the heritage, what's going on there. So any other opportunities that you can share in terms of the way to collaborate?
This is for our report, so we can get more funding to do that.
Yeah, to collaborate, because like today I was saying the research network, and I realized that there is possibility to do a partnership grant, and meeting people that I don't know yet, I never met them. So.
Okay, so in the last workshop, we were talking about projects that we might like to develop, and I had one. And it had not occurred to me that if I wanted to find facilitators to go out into the schools to pitch the project, that I should go to the universities and talk to the communication students or the graphic artist students who might like to take it on as a project. And I thought, oh, well, now there's a collaboration that would really be a benefit to me. So that's why.
Oh, thank you. Anybody else find new hopes?
So I'm new to my position with Montreal School Board as coordinator of adult and vocational services, and I had the opportunity this afternoon to meet someone that I will be and already started to collaborate with at John Abbott College, which is Nabil, who's with the pharma program there. And so, I'm just learning about the existing project that's in place, but it's really exciting to have an opportunity to actually meet face to face with Nabil and with everybody else who's also looking towards building the same destination, working towards a strong, vital English community within Quebec that stays and thrives.
Thank you. I know that we talked today, there are a lot of conversation, because you see in Quebec, we used to think that all the Anglo are rich people. But there are some socioeconomic realities. So did you get, anyway, I get some knowledge out of that, because right from the beginning there was that difference, but people never mentioned that. It was like, the Anglophone was a group of Montreal, and one of my friends called them the Blue Blood from Montreal. So did you gain any knowledge about the reality of that community, the social, economic, and so the kind of networks and resources they need to be identified?
Caitlin, the last session that I went to this afternoon had 3 mind-blowing examples of this question, answers to this question. There was a speaker from the Magdalen Islands, there was a speaker from Phelps Helps, and one from Park Extension. Excuse me? Andesta, I forgot it, that was the second one. Just brilliant examples of different strategies for different communities. Because there's a community of communities piece again. The communities were very different, the needs were very different. Within this, there were low socioeconomic realities, and at least some of them. So that was common, but otherwise they were totally different. And the strategies used were just amazing, and the successes that was where the mind-blowing piece came in. So this was something that occurred earlier in the week too, actually. It's the variety of things that are going on, and the fact that somebody again today used the word silos, that I never knew about. I heard of them, but I never really knew the detail of some of these things. And to learn about those, and to see that there are so many dedicated people out there, directly and indirectly involved in education, as Lynn said, doesn't occur necessarily in a classroom. We've had a chance to hear about these silos, and I hope we've had a chance to get together, talk to each other, and break down and share some of the things that are happening. There's no one solution, there's no one size fits all, but we can learn aspects of the solutions from each other. It's been amazing. Thank you.
I moderated a session on Monday morning that was about early childhood education, and there were 3 examples, one from the Gaspé Peninsula, one from the Outaouais area, and the other one from Ganawagi, and each of them were dealing with difficult socioeconomic issues, realities, and had, as Kate said, completely different solutions and different problems and different solutions. So just a simple example was trying to find the parents that needed the assistance. So in Gaspé, it wasn't an issue. It's a small community. They know all the families, and they sent letters and did a follow-up phone call. In Ganawagi, same thing. It's a community. Everybody, they knew who they were helping, and that wasn't an issue. In Outaouais, they knew the parents were there, they knew the statistics, but how do you find them? Right? They're invisible, and that ended up being through word of mouth. Once the program started with 2 parents, and then now it's exploded. But it just took a year to sort of keep growing. So that was really interesting to me. And the stats, the data, the research. And showing the research to the people who were doing the budgeting and matching that, so that they realized, oh, we need to put this money there, because that's where the problems are.
Thank you. So I think we can move in terms of, success stories. That's one you just described, a success story. Do we have other success stories that you heard and want to share that have been identified?
Yeah, I enjoyed this success story that Colin put forward the other day about the Welsh system and how they grew and some of the challenges that they face. I thought that was interesting because it makes you reflect on what we have to do here with our own challenges. And for me that was interesting. So In one sense, it was a huge success, the number of students who are now learning in Welsh, but you've always got to go over the next hurdle to make it stick. You've got to always keep working at it. It's not something that will be solved overnight if we just do A, B, and C. So thank you, Colin.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to share a success story? Yes.
I think we need to acknowledge this event as a success story. And the reason why is because if we're ever going to get to the nitty-gritty of how this community identifies itself in its many different ways, it's really through spending time together and sort of sharing the different ways that we approach our problems. So if we keep doing that, then I think that's best practice as well.
Okay, so you get into best practices. Anybody wants to share any best practices? We have heard a couple, but best practices in your community, in your schools, in your school boards, in your organization that you want to share in terms of it. Don't be humble. You know, it's time to really talk about it and let others know.
I'm Carol Meindl, and I'm from the Quebec Federation of Home and School Associations. And I would say one of the best practices we have in the schools in order to build and maintain the parent community is you get the kindergarten parents. Because they're the ones who have all the energy and all the angst about their children, and they want to be as involved as possible. And the added plus is their kid is going to be in that school for at least 6 years. So if you can keep them engaged until their child graduates, you've got a good core of people.
Now we know how you stay so skinny. It's Roma Medwin. I want to share one of the winning practices of all the school boards in the province, especially the Anglophone school boards. The 9 meet constantly to discuss problems that may arrive. I was part of the team that was very solution orientated. So when our Francophone cohorts are still discussing the problem, we've already come to a solution and how to work it out. And one of the ways that's to the Anglophone community, particular to it, is the Centres of Excellence. And it answers a question from this morning in regard to how are the rural boards helping the urban boards helping the rural areas. They've set up Centres of Excellence, where there are centres in each board. For instance, the English Montreal School Boards has speech and language, Lester B. Pearson has behavior management and so on, and mental health. We share the expertise of our professionals who are hard to find in the rural areas. They go out and they share their expertise with the other boards in order to build up the competency and the skills of the people in the rural areas. So that's one of the things, the best practices that we're very happy about. But I think what we've all heard is best practices. But again, I'm going to go back to Kate's word, the silos. We need to keep discussing, and there needs to be leadership to move this forward, to define that community identity and how we all can contribute to it without overlapping each other.
Thank you. Any other best practices we want to share? And now, what do we want to do in terms of, I don't know if some of you were there on Sunday, there were a lot of big political neighbors, and we still have 1 or 2 here. So, so is to look at the strategic recommendation that we want to put ahead for those people.
First of all, take the opportunity to say how much I've enjoyed and learned and to welcome the fellowship. So that's a genuine, sincere statement. Most of you know what needs to be done. Most of you know what the challenges are. From my experience, I just want to repeat 2 home truths. For QUESCREN, which I understand is a relatively value-free research network, a think tank, articulating ideas, academics have a habit of suggesting strong policy recommendations which will fly by themselves because they're good, and rational, liberal-minded people accept good ideas. Exactly. Civil servants who have to action and implement these recommendations in competing, tightly structured programs of action often react very strongly to good recommendations. What do I do with this? How does this actually integrate into my portfolio without actually making me an activist or a pariah civil servant, a lone star, sympathetic public servant? One of the great strengths of your network is that you have all types of practitioners gathered here. And so why not manipulate those relationships by asking those who are close to decision makers, what sorts of recommendations can you action within the life of this government? Abstract recommendations, great ideological recommendations, will always be out there for the great unwashed public. But when you want to change, you want to recognize that there are long-term changes, structural changes, but also short-term gains that can be done in the life of a government. No government is going to commit itself to 20 years. It's not responsible. So what you need to do is to use, and I'm not looking at any particular individuals because I don't know you, but you need to use those people who are already in your group to actually test ideas on them, how to rephrase certain recommendations, and it may be that there are recommendations for the English language unity and cooperative network, but language is never mentioned. Other policy programs can deliver what you want without making a fetish of language. And we've heard poverty, rural infrastructure, service centres, underemployment, transport links, quality of life. All those policy issues affect your communities. So sometimes you can make recommendations which never mention the language issue per se. And so by doing so, you translate your interest into a public wealth creation, added value, quality of life perspective. And work backwards and get what you want through different means. So we have to be, or you have to be, creative, clever, and know what flies in the real world of politics, not what sounds great to academics or NGOs. Work within the system to change the system. You know that, you just need to do it.
Thank you. Anybody else want to add into that great strategy?
It's a common
yes.
sense. It's
Yes.
real politics.
Yeah, it is.
Everybody else is it?
It might be just a more pragmatic recommendation for QUESCREN, but I think what happened over the last 3 days, all the networking and the collaboration and the exchange that's happened, should or could be tracked from here to where it goes. And that, I think, it'll grow exponentially, I would imagine, over the next, whatever, until the next, hopefully, QUESCREN. But I think that should be tracked in some way to show the success.
Yes, I think that's what we are going to do. Anybody else want to add something in terms of the recommendations and the strategy and so on? So, I understand that all those inputs are going to be used for the report of the forum, and also all the notes that has been taken over those 3 days is going to really make not just a report, but a very strong recommendations about what will be the next steps. QUESCREN is going to move for the next steps and in terms of building capacity for the community. And also, I would like to thank each of you for your engagement and your commitment for coming, to join us. I know that our committee worked very hard to make this happen, a lot of changes, and we have so many meetings that sometimes I wonder if she sleeps in so many emails. I wonder if Luann and Patty go to bed sometimes, even on Saturdays and Sundays. So it has been also a journey for the committee, for members of the committee. And I'm sure that what we learned during those 3 days will help each of us to make a difference in our little space, in our community, in our mind, in our spirit in terms of community. And also I would like to thank Lauren and someone special because I'm leaving tomorrow morning for Haiti because I have to give workshops in the rural areas for 2 weeks. And they give me all the extra pens and all the extra papers. Thank you very much, because Air Canada said they would take 40 boxes for us free, so that would be very useful. And also, when Lauren was saying that, I didn't give anything about my biography, and I will say that I didn't learn, I only learned French at school. At home, I spoke German and Spanish, and I'm from Haiti. I'm from the south of Haiti, and I speak Creole. So, and I came to Montreal, and I chose to study études anglaises at l'Université du Québec à Montréal. So you can imagine why I find that I'm a minority wherever I go. And I thought I speak German, but when I went to Germany, I speak very bad German. Because my parents come from the rural world, the Jewish to Haiti, so they didn't, this is, they keep the same kind, their language didn't evolve. So I do understand what is it to be a minority, and also, I'm part of what we call the pluralist diversity, and sometimes I wonder if I am Francophone, Anglophone, German, I don't even know. So I think it's a struggle that each of us, in terms of identity, we have to go through. And this is why I keep going back to Haiti every year to work in the field, just to make me feel what does it mean, to have roots. Because you do need this kind of roots wherever you are, wherever you go. And Dr. Levasseur just mentioned the fact that, being visible in a visible minority in a community is not that obvious, especially when you don't even know which language is yours. And because this morning, I think Dr. Wynne was asking me how to pronounce your name. My name is Berger, but we say Berger, but it's not really Berger, so that's quite a story. So, I think this is the beginning. I share that with you because just to make you realize that when we talk about identity, about the community, and the new generation, the young generation, is fighting also to find their identities. I see them in the School of Education. I see them, as a professor. I see them as, in the community. They are looking who they are, in that global community. So it's very important, dear Lauren, that QUESCREN continues to do what you're doing. It's very important because for us to maintain the vitality of the community, we do need this kind of forum. It's very powerful because this is where we can start doing something and move on with. And je pense que ce n'est qu'un début et c'est à souhaiter qu'il y aura d'autres rassemblements pour nous rappeler que c'est par le dialogue constant qu'on va arriver à avoir des idées, aller plus loin. Et je pense qu'au Québec, on vient de créer quelque chose d'extraordinaire. Je le connais en Ontario, les affaires francophones. Donc, d'avoir cette relation anglophone qui va nous soutenir. Et je dis nous parce que je pense que je fais partie de toutes ces communautés. Donc, et nous avons besoin aussi de recherche pour pouvoir appuyer ce que nous faisons et ce que QUESCREN fait. So, thank you everybody, each of you, and I think it has been wonderful, and keep it up.